been a while since I've come out here and I made a video, talking about biblical things and stuff like that. And so I figured I really need to get back into it. But the reality is I built a business for my wife, and so we've been able to spend a lot more time together. I also built a chicken coop, and so I've been pretty busy doing some things out here. But I need to get back into it. I definitely do. And so one of the things that I've been weighing on my mind is that we've all had conversations with atheists and or people who even claim that Jesus Christ didn't exist. They're like, oh, there's no written evidence that existed during his lifetime. And you know what? And that's an accurate statement. That is very true. So, but there's also other historic, like, that concept is not unique to Jesus Christ. There's a lot of famous people around that time during the Roman time that same thing. There's no written documentation that exists today of their existence that was written during their lifetime. So perfect example of this is Alexander the Great. There's no argument or debate on whether or not Alexander the Great existed, right? But there's nothing written during his lifetime that justifies or proves that he actually existed. So, with that being said, I'm going to use, because atheists don't want you to use the Gospels. They want you to use the Bible as evidence, right? Because that's biblical, right? They don't want you to do that. So I'm going to use some non-biblical text to justify the existence of Jesus Christ, the person. So us as Christians, we can combat and at least entertain or start a conversation with somebody, at least for the justification of Jesus, the person. So during Jesus's time on earth, the literacy rate was actually very, very low. It was only like 3 to 10% of the population knew how to read and write. As a matter of fact, it was actually higher during Alexander the Great's time, which was like 323 BC. But even for both times, really the only writings that were really existed during those times were for military action, right? Because you needed to be able to communicate with letters and send messages to the field and also back to Rome and stuff like that. Or it was if you were in the government, some way, shape, or form, you were either a lawyer or a governor or some type of person who filled those types of roles, or you were part of the religious group. You were part of you were either a Jewish Pharisee, or you served some role within the church. Now, we know that Jesus Christ, he was not a military man, not the first go around, second go around, but not the first go around. But anyway, I'm sorry, I was joking there. But we know that he wasn't in the government, right? He didn't have a government role, right? He was a carpenter. And the Jews didn't like Jesus Christ, and we know that, right? So, and during this time, information for the most part was passed by word of mouth. So it makes sense that there would be no documentation that was written during Jesus Christ's time. That only makes sense. But the 4 non-biblical texts that I want to use for this, 3 of them are Romans, and then one of them is actually a Jewish historian that I'm going to use. The first non-biblical text that I want to cover is by Flavius Josephus, or most commonly referred to as just Josephus. He created a document called the Antiquities of the Jews. And in the Antiquities of the Jews, he goes and he states that he lists a time of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, right, in the governorship of Pontius Pilate. Right? He states that Jesus, he's a wise man, if indeed one should call him a man. Okay? He basically continues to go and states that he did startling deeds. He was he was a teacher, he had a following, and that he was crucified, and then 3 days later he appeared to to his followers, but then a multitude of others, the same way the Jewish divine prophets stated that he would. Now, he also goes to say that he was the Messiah. Now, because it says that he was the Messiah, the Jewish historians of today like to say that it's a forgery, that the Christians got a hold of it and they basically altered the document. But even the Christian historians, even the non-religious historians, still use his document as a trusted source. I forgot to mention, and I don't want to film this again because I've already done like 10 times already, but Josephus, he actually discussed John the Baptist and Caiaphas, and basically having Caiaphas accused Jesus Christ of blasphemy, and also his role with Jesus and the crucifixion. The other non-biblical source that I want to use is by a Roman historian named Tacitus. So Tacitus, he writes in the Annals, right? He mentions the Christians being named after someone called Christus, and he also identifies other Roman emperors that had direct impacts to Jesus Christ's time and Jesus Christ's life. And both Josephus and Tacitus, okay, they both confirm that Jesus Christ, he was a historical person who lived in Judea, what we would commonly refer to today as Palestine. Okay, they both identify him as being Jewish and a great leader, and they both identify the execution of his brother James and his crucifixion. All right, so, and both identify Pontius Pilate and his role in the execution of Jesus Christ. The other two Romans I would like to discuss, one being Suetonius. Suetonius, he wrote a couple pieces of work where he described the burning of Rome, and during Emperor Nero's time, which he blamed on the Christians, right? But also, Suetonius he identified a bunch of different Roman leaders, and also he identified the persecution of Jesus Christ. So he identified a bunch of different leaders that had impacts on Jesus's life and the crucifixion of Jesus and the followers of Christianity, and ultimately naming Jesus Christ, or Christus, as basically how the Christians got their commonly referred to name as Christians, right? So the other one I wanted to talk about was Pliny the Younger. Pliny the Younger, he was an author, he was a lawyer, and he was also he was part of the Roman government during the time. He actually conducted trials over Christians who ultimately were persecuted for their belief in and following of the teachings of Jesus Christ. So Alexander the Great. So the earliest surviving document that we have for the justification of and life of Alexander the Great is a piece of work called the Anabasis of Alexander. That was written in 150 AD. It is assumed, because Alexander was he took over the known world at the time, right? He conquered the entire known world. It is assumed that letters were written for communication between him and Rome and stuff like that. And in Anabasis of Alexander, it is also written that in the biography, it references certain documents that were supposedly written during his time, but those don't exist. All right, those don't exist. The oldest surviving document that we have for Alexander the Great is this Anabasis of Alexander. Like I said, that was written in 150 AD. Alexander the Great died in 323 AD. If my math is mathin', that is 473 years after his death. So if we take into account these four non-biblical texts, they were written like 60 to 90 years after Jesus Christ's death. If we take into account, and those are four trusted sources for Jesus Christ's existence, right? That's what we're going for right now, just his existence. So those four non-biblical documents were written 60 to 90 years after his death. If we take the books in the gospel, just to say that he existed, okay? If we take the books from the gospel, we're talking 20 to 90 years. If we take the Romans out of it and just use the Gospels and Josephus, we're talking 20 to 60 years after his death is when these documents or the documents justifying the existence of Jesus Christ was written. Compared to, there are only 5 to 7 trusted sources for the existence of Alexander the Great as a person. So if we include biblical text, right, from other religious sources, right, that are religious in origin, we have 30 to 40 trusted documents for Jesus Christ, like original trusted documents. There's only 5 or 7 original trusted documents for the existence of Alexander the Great. There's more evidence that Jesus Christ existed as a person than there is Alexander the Great. So, just as a person, you cannot deny the fact that Jesus Christ existed as a historical figure who was in Judea, what we know as Palestine. He had a huge following. He was a teacher, and he did miraculous things. What that means, I think it means the miracles, because Josephus kind of alluded to it, right? So, all right, y'all, that's where I'm going to conclude this. Let me know. I'm going to hang out with my chicken some more, but let me know what y'all want to touch up on, what you guys want to talk about. This really helps me out, honestly. Every time I come up with something, I find out a lot of good information, and it's just a little bit of ammo that I can use to increase my teachings and my help to help the kingdom of God grow. So, look, I love y'all. Take it easy. Please let me know what you want to hear about next time. All right, talk with you later. Bye.